Hi everyone, how are you? And today is a very special episode from Ask Mira show at CSAT TV. We have a very special guest, came from Houston, Texas to be with us here today. We welcome the wife of the former Congressman Steve Stockman, Mrs. Patti Stockman. How are you, ma'am?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming here today. We are very delighted to have you.
It's a joy.
Thank you so much. So I know you have a great relationship with Egypt, you and Mr. Steve, right?
Yes, well, particularly my husband. His forte is international affairs, and he's always had a heart for other nations. And so when he was in Congress, he served on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and he traveled to Egypt. He traveled to a number of countries over in that part of the world, Middle East. And even after he was out of Congress, he traveled there a lot. He visited with General Sisi's,
and he met him already?
Yeah, and his personnel. In fact, I think he had the cell phone of his second in command. And Steve was over right after the overthrow of the government when they threw out Morsi.
Okay.
He was over there and visited with people in the streets as well as the new government.
So that's part of Egypt.
Yes, he spent so much time in Egypt. He would go over and spend weeks.
Yes.
Yes,
So
and I only one time I was able to go over and join him when he was there.
Yes, we have all the pictures. We'll talk about that Egypt trip because it was like a big deal. And I need to know about you first. So what you do?
Well, I work for NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration.
So you are the genius?
No, I'm not a genius.
Yes, you are.
I am the agency records officer and Privacy Act officer, and as records officer, I set policy for the for NASA across the nation. We have 10 NASA centers.
Wow.
And so I've been with NASA for 35 years this past fall.
Oh, okay.
But NASA's not why we're here today. We're here to talk about my husband, yes.
Yes, exactly. So we are going to talk about very important issue, something like it's bizarre for me how that happens in like America or any place in the country, you know. But first we need to show the pictures in Egypt, and you tell me why he been in Egypt so many times.
Well, as I said, he just has a real heart for Egypt, Egyptians, and Middle Eastern countries as well.
Yes.
And nations that were part of the former Soviet bloc. And so I know he met with clerics over there, different clerics. This is a picture of him, of my husband Steve Stockman with Dr. Freddie Al-Bayadi outside of Beirut. It's a town outside of Beirut. And Steve was involved in helping renovate the hospital, have it painted, lay a new front to the building, and just really pleased with that work of that hospital. It was started by a local church, and Muslims and Christians worked together in the hospital. In fact, I was very touched by a story that Dr. Al-Bayadi told about that.
So what is that story?
He said during the times where Muslims were rising up and were rioting, there were a group of Muslims that came and they were moving towards this hospital, but local Muslim men formed a human shield in front of the hospital and blocked it and said, "You will not bother this hospital because it serves the whole community lovingly, spreading the love of Christ." It was just so moving that he told that story. And so Steve was very touched by the hospital and the work that it does. So he was involved with them.
Nice. Okay.
And Dr. Al-Bayadi, by the way, served in the Egyptian government. He served in, it's not parliament, what is the Egyptian?
I'm not sure.
the ruling body, the similar to our Congress. Anyway.
Okay, and I have a picture for you with كمان in Egypt. If لو المخرج يجيب لنا الصورة.
I was able to go over one time
and
join them.
Very nice picture.
And I got to see, you know, the things that tourists see, the pyramids and just the Sphinx.
Yes.
I have some fun pictures with the Sphinx, but it was definitely my trip was more fun and just enjoying the sights of Egypt, where Steve was working.
Yes. So which year Steve Stockman been a congressman? He was a congressman for United States of America.
he was elected twice to Congress. He was elected in 1994. He unseated a 42-year incumbent Democrat, a man who had been there for 42 years, a Democrat congressman. We ran 3 times, that is for 6 years, before we took him out of office. Then he ran again, if you could just pause there, he ran again. He was unseated after 2 years because it was a Democrat district. He ran again in 2012. And we don't want to probably run through these pictures quite yet. But in 2012, he ran for Congress again and was elected, went back to Congress in 2013. So the picture that you saw just now was, he was sworn in with the rest of Congress, but we had a lot of supporters that came up to see for his swearing in. So we redid the ceremony, and you could see in the picture, if he wants to back up, a picture of him.
This one.
Yes, this was a pastor friend of ours who came and repeated the vows, the oath of office, and then our pastor, associate pastor at our church, prayed over us for his term in office. And
what year it was this?
This was January 2013 when he took office.
Oh, okay.
And congressional terms are only 2 years in the House of Representatives. So at the end of his 2 years, Steve did not run for re-election again. Instead, he ran in the Republican primary for Senate.
Okay, amazing.
And we lost that race.
Yes, and we lost. Okay, so you tell me, what was his message? Like every congressman, I know he has duties, right? He has his own like opinion or his own vision. I need to maybe watch one video before we continue. First video, maybe.
Well, first let me kind of set up to kind of set up, tell you what Steve's agenda was. Steve went to Washington. Both times he went very much like President Trump went to Washington, and that was to make a difference in the way things are done. He felt like that Congress was taking our nation almost over the cliff. So he went to change the way things were done, and he took stands, bold stands on issues of convictions of his heart, and he did not just go along to get along. He did what he thought was right, in spite of the way things are done. And that's the way our president, current president, is operating. But doing that kind of gets you in trouble sometime. Yes. And before we actually play a video of my husband, I'd like to share a video that he likes for everybody to see. And that's because he took such bold stands and opposed, this last time he was in office, he opposed the Obama administration agenda. So many of their agenda items, he blocked them. He exposed a lot of corruption in that administration constantly. He was always very public. So we have a lot of video of him on Fox News and other outlets talking about what was going on.
He was a brave man, huh?
Yes. And consequently, our justice system and the IRS teamed together and came after him and falsely prosecuted him. And this video we're going to see is of John Stossel talking about the corruption of the Department of Justice in America. And just to let people know, an independent source talking about the corruption.
Like any country in the world has part corrupted, right?
Yes.
This is.
Yes.
But this is really sad to see that a congressman held a very high position, tried to help like millions of people, to be like, accused with something like horrible like that.
So this will help you and your viewers understand how this could happen to my husband.
Of course. Okay, so maybe ممكن the first video, please. If it's ready, we can play the first video.
American lawyers like to say our justice system is the fairest in the world. If that's true, I pity the rest of the world. Because in America, a small, powerful group of Washington overlords, federal prosecutors, sometimes break rules to win cases, often wrecking the lives of people who did nothing wrong. You can read about this in this new book by Sidney Powell, License to Lie, Exposing Corruption in the Department of Justice. She writes that overzealous, ambitious, narcissistic, and dishonest prosecutors destroy innocent people by deliberately withholding evidence they knew contradicted their cases. For example, remember the Arthur Andersen accounting firm? 80,000 people worked there. But they lost their jobs after the government claimed Anderson Partners helped Enron commit accounting fraud. The prosecutors claimed the employees destroyed evidence once they saw the government was coming to investigate.
Anderson shipped off nearly 2 tons of documents for shredding. A year later, the Justice Department won a conviction against Anderson for obstruction of justice, and the company was ruined.
It was, the whole company. Instead of charging the individuals who allegedly destroyed evidence, but that might have taken more time, more trials, that might have gotten less publicity, they instead indicted the whole company. And once indicted, Anderson lost most of its clients. Publicly traded companies aren't even allowed to do business with a company under criminal investigation. So Anderson went out of business. The prosecutor's purpose, says Powell, was to chill resistance from any other company that might dare resist the feds. Cooperate or we will destroy you. And this was necessary, they said, because shredding documents is a crime that attacks the justice system itself by impeding discovery of the truth. Well, maybe. But who actually hid the truth? The prosecutors, writes Powell. Despite the prosecutor's claims about shredded documents and obstruction of justice, Anderson had, in fact, saved its documents and produced them to the government. Powell says the prosecutors simply lied. Once that was revealed,
the Supreme Court overturned that conviction.
Too late, 80,000 people lost their jobs. So were the prosecutors then jailed, or at least punished, disbarred? No. The overlords protect their own. Believe it or not, they were promoted. Next, they accused 4 Merrill Lynch executives of fraud for falsifying Enron's books. The government lawyers told the media that Enron conspired with Wall Street bankers to carry out a sham transaction. 4 Merrill Lynch executives got jail sentences, 3 to 4 years. Powell writes that the government never alleged anything that actually constituted a crime by Merrill Lynch execs. Instead, it cobbled together parts of different statutes to make up some new kind of new crime that didn't even make sense. And sure enough, an appeals court tossed most of the verdict.
Yeah, so can you please elaborate a little bit about this video?
So this just gives you an idea of the kind of tactics that a lot of corrupt people in our Department of Justice use to go after Americans that are really innocent. And so my husband was in that case. And so if we have time to see the video now of my husband.
The second video.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe the second video, if it's ready, we can get the second video so we know more about Mr. Stockman.
Yeah, Steve really likes for people to see the one that we just saw.
Okay.
So.
Yes, okay.
Mr. Stockman.
Congressman Stockman. Steve Stockman is one of us.
Steve Stockman was a force of nature when he got to Congress, and he made things happen. It was an exciting time to have somebody like Steve Stockman working on behalf of the gun owners of America across the country, but on so many other conservative issues, he was there, he was taking the point, and he made things happen.
Steve's ideas and philosophy resonated with the union workers who were not pleased with the way Washington was conducting things with NAFTA and the free trade.
In 2014, Steve sponsored a bill to build a wall to limit MS-13 and to stop drugs from coming into the United States illegally.
1 month into his term, he brought Ted Nugent, who's an NRA board member, to the State of the Union as his guest to make a statement that he believes in Second Amendment rights and the Constitution.
Steve Stockman was Tea Party before Tea Party was cool.
He made things happen. Well, not surprisingly, that kind of dedication to freedom, to the Constitution, to limited government, generated all kinds of opposition from what we now know and refer to as the deep state.
Within weeks of Congressman Stockman introducing a resolution that would have identified the Justice Department officials Lois Lerner colluded with to target Tea Party activists, Congressman Stockman himself became the target of a DOJ Public Integrity Division investigation.
And Mr. Stockman has been a staunch conservative for a long time, and been one of the few that was willing to take action against Lois Lerner. This also creates a threat to conservative charitable causes, because Mr. Stockman was trying to do good work through a charity, and they managed to criminalize that. I see the same thing happening now with respect to the Trump Foundation. This is all a precursor to what is happening in the news today. It's their trial run, it's their effort to create precedent, and it's their further abuse of the law.
When you take on the deep state, it's not going to be an easy road to hoe, and Steve now is locked up because he was fighting for our freedom.
This man that has fought for our rights and liberties is now deprived of his own, and that's the crime.
The similarities between Congressman Stockman and President Trump are quite amazing.
One of the things that struck me when Donald Trump announced for office and when he was campaigning, and certainly as he has carried out his duties as president, is that it was like watching Steve Stockman elected at the national level. The two have very many things in common, but the most important thing that I can say is that they came to Washington to challenge the establishment.
And it's just going to be very difficult to think of spending the rest of my life without my partner, and for Steve to spend the rest of his life in prison. It's just very tough to think about that.
To President Trump, I would say, Mr. President, Steve Stockman is one of us. He believes that the swamp is real, that it's pervasive, that the deep state is incredibly deep, and the fake news is all too real. And he's fought the fight against the deep state and against the fake news for a long, long time. And he's now paying the consequences. I would ask you to look into his case and give him a pardon.
So every country in the world has a corruption like part, and corruption part here in the United States trapped your husband 283 years in prison. Is this like something anyone can understand or imagine?
No, no one can imagine this. And he wasn't sentenced to that long, but they charged him with so many different things. They stacked up charge after charge after charge. For example, what was involved were 4 checks written by 2 donors to nonprofit organizations.
Okay.
And so the government claimed that my husband committed fraud when he solicited the donations, which is not true, but that was the charge. And so for each check, they counted mail fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, well, not each and every one, but they stacked up multiple charges that were the same for different transactions. And they, as John Stossel in the first video we were talking about, was talking about, they make up, and Sidney Powell as well, they make up a fallacious story out of facts, just like we've seen happen with our president in the impeachment process.
Yes.
They put forward information that's twisted.
Twisted.
And our government controls what the jury, because Steve had a jury trial, but the government controls what the jury can see and what they can hear. All of the witnesses for my husband were denied except for 2. He had 2 witnesses in a 3-week trial. The government paraded witness after witness after witness, and they asked them very, very limited questions to pull out of them a partial truth, and sometimes we know an untruth. And so it's just the jury did not get the truth, and therefore the jury did not make an informed decision. And my husband's case, unfortunately, is not, it's just an example of what happens in our nation, especially to conservatives and Christians. since being in prison. So Steve was arrested in 2016.
Yeah, 2016. You
Do
told
I
me
have
only
this right?
2 years.
2017.
2017?
He was arrested.
Okay.
And a year later had the jury trial in 2018 in the spring. It was March, April. And at the end of the trial, the government asked the judge to immediately have him arrested and taken into custody, into prison. But he wasn't sentenced for 7 months. But when you stacked up all those charges, each one carried so many years of sentence, of imprisonment, and they added up to 283 years, all of them.
But you fought, so this lady, she's a bionic lady. She fought for her husband, and because he's really an innocent man, you decreased the 283 years in prison to 10 years. Is that true?
No, it wasn't me that accomplished that.
Okay.
It was, we had an attorney for sentencing.
I know, but you did that. You hired the attorney.
Well, together, my husband and I did.
Okay.
And, so the judge has the sentences are being served at the same time.
Yes.
For the different charges.
Okay.
And it added, she sentenced him to 10 years in prison. And these aren't crimes, but even if they were, murderers and rapists serve 2 or 3 years.
Yes.
And my husband
He was
served
targeted.
10 years.
He was targeted.
It's just unreasonable.
It's unreasonable. But okay, I noticed something in the previous video. They saying the wall for Mexico. It was his idea?
Oh no, it wasn't his idea. No, in fact, Congress had before he went back to Congress in 2013. The previous Congress had appropriated money for a wall, and they had begun. I think they had begun building a wall, but everything stopped until Donald Trump came and was elected.
Okay.
And my husband really wishes he was there and supporting Donald Trump in Congress.
So what do you think of all what Donald Trump, our president, doing right now?
Oh, both of us are very pleased with the way the president is governing. I mean, we have the strongest economy that we've had in decades, and jobs. People are getting jobs in all walks of life, all strata of society, minorities and women. Employment is up. We really are happy with his support of life because we're Christians and we're big supporters of life. God creates life, and it's not our right to take life. Yes. And so we're very, very big proponents of life, and this is the strongest pro-life a president that we've had in a long time, we believe. And just so many issues. I can't name one issue that I think the president is wrong on.
Okay, that's good. So tell me, what is your hope and your wishes right now, not only for your husband to be out of the prison because he's an innocent man, but for America and for the world? Like, what justice are you looking for?
Well, in my husband's case, release. And in fact, the president sees the same thing. There are a lot of people, thousands upon thousands of people in prison that ought not be there. Even if they're guilty, they shouldn't be serving such long sentences. And you can see President Trump has pardoned many people since he's been in office. Just last week, was it last week? I think he pardoned a new group of people. And so that's good. He's helping set the wrongness of our justice system right. So, because this whole problem is much bigger than Congressman Steve Stockman, there are many people who are wrongfully targeted by our Justice Department and our IRS. That's been in the news over the years as well. And the IRS partnered with the DOJ to come after my husband. But again, he's not the only one. So, you know, the Bible says where the righteous rule, the people rejoice. And where the unrighteous rule, people groan. And so for the United States as well as other countries, we would like to see righteousness return to government. Yes. If people honor God and follow Him, God blesses the nation.
That's true. That's very true. Okay, so I need to ask you about Mr. Steve Stockman, and tell me Do you talk to him right now?
Yes.
Okay. And what's his like? He's doing right now inside the prison. Is it like?
Well,
they treat him well. There is a problem.
Yeah, there are problems. It's not a happy existence in the prison. But I have to tell you, I was able to. I visit him every week, and I can talk to him, and I do talk to him every day. He called me just before I came here.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and he's really excited that I'm doing this show because his heart for Egypt.
Yes.
And so he was reminding me, oh, tell them, you know, how much I love Egypt and all.
Oh.
But I'm really happy to say that there are other Christians in prison, and they have some very solid Bible studies. And actually, Steve has grown spiritually, as I have going through this trial. But, you know, Jesus promised us in this world we will have trouble. And I guarantee you most of your viewers have trouble in their lives. We have cancer, we have divorces, we have so many trials that we walk through, and this just happens to be our trial. But the first time I visited Steve, 2 days after he was taken into prison, that was very hard. We had to visit through very thick glass and couldn't touch him. And I had prepared myself to see him. I said, okay, Patti, Steve is going to be in an orange jumpsuit. Don't panic, don't be surprised. And so I was all prepared, and I could see through the glass. A guard came past the door on the other side, and then they opened the door, and the guard was just laughing. And then I saw my husband, and he was just laughing, and then a second guard, and they were all just laughing. My husband's a funny guy, and he just makes people happy. And so he was telling jokes and had them happy. But he told me, Patti, they've got my body. They don't have my heart and my soul. And so throughout, he's been there nearly 2 years now. And he's been in 3 different prisons along the way. And Steve is being Steve regardless of where he is. And so he blesses others. They study the Bible together. They laugh together. But he's also working on re-election ideas for President Trump.
Oh, that's
because
very nice.
He loves politics,
yes.
And he does campaigns a lot. He's very smart when it comes to campaigning. So he's sending out ideas of things to be done to help President Trump be reelected.
Oh, that's really nice to share with us. And you know, everyone has, like as you said, like problem or trouble or trial, and we all have faith in God.
Yes,
that's our main thing, God and God.
I don't know how people go through this who do not have faith in the Lord.
Yes.
I don't understand how I think that's why we see suicides and despair. People are in despair who have no hope in Christ.
Yes, we have hope, and we thank God that we are, like, you know, believe in Christ. So, okay, so tell me, now the problem or the subject of the program today is not finished yet. You still fighting. You still trying to get him out of this place, right?
Yeah.
So I wanna know what you're doing right now, and what's your message to the viewers, and how we can all help.
Well, so we're pursuing every avenue that we can possibly press down.
Yes.
So we've got a legal avenue that we're pursuing, and we have an avenue of hope that the president will pardon Steve,
yes,
or at least commute his sentence, which means he won't be pardoned. He can continue to fight in court, but he can come out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the two, and that's a very difficult process, and
long
I don't know how,
mm-hmm,
but the legal process is extremely long. Mm-hmm. And so where we are with that is he's appealing his verdict to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. That's a court between the Houston court and the Supreme Court. And this Court of Appeals meets in New Orleans, Louisiana. And we had a 3-judge panel from the Fifth Circuit that heard my husband's case in October. And the 3 judges were 2 Obama-appointed judges and a President Reagan-appointed judge. And all the 3 of them ruled against every argument that Steve's attorney made. Mm-hmm. So currently we have petitioned the Fifth Circuit for the entire court. There are 20-some judges on the Fifth Circuit. And so we're asking the whole court, all 20-some judges, to hear Steve's appeal, which we believe is very valid because they ignored court precedents, decisions that had been made in the past. They ignored them and ruled opposite in my husband's case. And so it set a new bar for nonprofit organizations, including churches, of solicitation. It sets a new criteria of what constitutes fraud in raising funds for nonprofit organizations, and it also sets new precedent for certain campaign finance avenues.
Yeah.
So it's of concern to all nonprofit organizations as well as federal candidates. And so we're hopeful that they'll hear the case and rule in our favor.
Yes,
And
we pray for that
and
too.
So pray for that.
Yes.
And then we do know that there are at least a couple of friends, well, several friends, who are advocating for my husband with the White House and with the president himself. And so he's aware, I'm sure he's aware of the case. And it's just a matter of timing, God's timing,
Yes.
of
God's timing.
whether and when he'll be set free by the president.
Yes.
So we're doing what we can do and standing firm, but ultimately it's all according to God's plan. And we know he's got a plan for this.
Yes. Like, you know, God bless your faith, and that's amazing. You're setting amazing example for us. Like, for you, your husband in prison, he's an innocent, someone like, you know, try to trap him or something, but you are fighting, you have faith and hope, and you have the courage to come out to the media and to the world and say that amazing words. So thank you so much. So tell me, right now, and right now you are trying, was the court, when the second court coming again?
We don't know. I expect that we'll hear from the court within a month now, within a month of whether or not they will even hear the case. And if they say they'll hear it, I think I read, but I'm not sure of my memory, but I believe I read that they only hear, the full court hear cases 3 times a year, and I believe the next time is in May.
May,
So
okay.
even if they say yes, they won't even hear it until May, or before May. I believe that's right. And then they have weeks and months to make a decision.
Yes.
And so everything drags along.
Okay.
So who knows?
So next time, I am sure you will come to meet me here with Mr. Stockman. Okay?
That would be great.
Yes, you're coming. You're bringing him here and coming to do an interview with me, right?
Yes. And before we close, I don't know how your time is.
Yeah, we have a video yet.
Do you want
one video.
How much time do you have?
We have like maybe 15 minutes, but yeah.
We can talk.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're interested in seeing what Steve had to say about different issues while he was in Congress.
Yes, yes, of
so
course.
I think we've got a video of like his position on the border. He had been down to the Mexican border while he was in Congress to see what was going on, because, you know, before President Trump took office, thousands and thousands of people were coming across our southern border every day.
Yes.
And Steve had gone down to the border to take a look at that. I don't know if you want to take a look at that.
So maybe we have a video for Mr. Stockman.
I don't know if he can find the
Yeah,
border
he will
one.
find it, yes. I wish if the...
I'm trying to think what other...
Yes, okay, we have it. Okay, let's see the video.
You didn't just talk the talk. What do you want people to remember about you?
Forget about the soap opera. Every American should worry about Mueller's precedents. You could be in your bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning and wake up to have armed FBI agents kicking in.
When Lois Lerner was illegally stifling the voice of conservative groups, Congressman Stockman called for the arrest of Lois Lerner because what she was doing was blatantly illegal.
3 years before Donald J. Trump was elected president, one congressman spoke out boldly and often as a whistleblower on Obama administration corruption.
Why do you want to seek impeachment of this president?
Well, as I said in my statement.
So I think the video is not. Yeah. So
that's right.
Can you tell me what's in the video?
Well, he just talks about his experience down at the border, and he was saying how it was heartbreaking to see people coming across, and they ran to the border agents. They didn't run away from them. I mean, our agents were not evil. They were running to them. But he said there were just so many pouring across, and a lot of children are brought across multiple times. And so that's one of the things we hear some people talk about, separating children from their parents. Well, a lot of children are brought across by people who aren't their parents, and they're sent back across the border in one way or another, and they come they come with other people to come across, and it's just, it's been crazy down on the border. So we need, Steve has always been a very strong proponent of, we have immigration laws that allow legal immigration, and so many people come to this nation, and they wait in line. I mean, not in line physically, but they wait their turn. They go through the process that takes time, and they don't just come in illegally and expect to receive all the rights of a citizen.
You're right. So yeah, just I want to clarify and explain this for everyone, because they, Trump is racist. No, he's not racist. He just needs everyone to be legal in this country, and he has, you know, you have many options to be legal in this country, right?
That's right.
Yes, so that's what we need to explain and clarify for the viewers.
Right, and so like the wall, building the wall is a big debate item.
Yes.
But all of us lock our doors on our home. Yeah. And why do we lock our doors? Because we don't want just anyone coming into our home anytime they feel like it. And many homes have bars. They have, you know, gates in front of their homes and that sort of thing to control who comes into your space. And that's why countries have borders and they have immigration laws. And no country allows just anybody to come into their country that wants to come.
Of course, and if you want to come and stay, you need to be legal, pay your taxes, and you know,
that's right.
receive your you know,
follow the rules to
rights,
come in. That's right.
And everything. So that's amazing. We spoke about that. So there is one video I want to show about Mr. Stockman as well. Okay.
To wrap it up.
Yes. Sir.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to share this with the viewers is, to me, it was very prophetic by my husband. He was being interviewed by another man who's a former congressman. He had come with Steve to Congress in the 90s and has since left, and he was interviewing him as a reporter. And I love the question and my husband's response, and it really explains why he's in prison.
Yeah, thank you so much. So لو المخرج جاهز لآخر فيديو, please, last one would be great. Okay, yeah, we'll be ready. Thank you so much for being here today. So we will come back and, okay, yeah, sure, نشوف الفيديو مع بعض. Thank you.
Steve Stockman, you walk the walk. You didn't just talk the talk. What do you want people to remember about you?
That I didn't blow with the wind, that I took up the challenge, and even though it may have been difficult on my family and on me, and it will continue to be difficult, I will not blow in the wind. I will stand firm, and I will stand up against the machine, which is here to, I think, undermine America's values, America's courage, and America's reputation around the world has been diminished, and we'll stand strong.
He's talking as he has a feeling for something. Do you think?
Yes.
Yeah?
Well, at that point in time, that was right after he had run unsuccessfully for the Senate nomination in the Republican primary.
Yeah.
And he knew that he was under investigation by the Justice Department. They investigated him for 3 years. So he knew that they weren't giving up until they could piece together something to put him in prison.
Yeah.
And we thought when they arrested him, he pled not guilty because he's innocent. And he believed that when the jury heard the truth, he would be exonerated, but the jury didn't hear the truth.
Yes.
And so they found him guilty. In fact, while we were waiting for the jury verdict to come back, he said to me more than one time, he said, if I had sat there and heard what this jury has heard for 3 weeks, I would find me guilty.
Yes, but I want to tell you, I spoke with like some friends for Mr. Stockman, and everyone believes that he's innocent and he will be out very soon, and we all going to celebrate.
Yes, we will.
Yes, we will.
Do that. Thank you.
I am very happy. I need last word for the viewers, what you want to say to them today.
Yes. So if you're interested in helping or getting more information, there's a website that I had stood up. It's defendapatriot.com, defendapatriot.com. And you can go there if you want to help financially with Steve's legal expenses. We spent all of Steve's retirement before he was even arrested on legal defense.
Wow.
And I had to dip into my own retirement significantly because we've never been wealthy people when he ran for office. We're just normal, everyday Americans next door who care about the country and did this. And so this is incredibly draining on our resources. So you can give financially through the website, or if you'd like to text from your phone, you can text FIGHT, F-I-G-H-T, to 444-999. FIGHT to 444-999.
Okay, great. And I need a word for President Trump, and we are supporter, and we love Mr. Trump so much, and we all know that he loves this country, he loves God, and we support him. Yes. And I know America will be great all the time with him. So
there's a petition there at the website that people can put their names and where they're from. It's a petition to the president, saying, Mr. President, please pardon Steve Stockman.
Oh, that's amazing. So what do you want to say to Mr. Trump right now, the president, our president?
Oh, Mr. President,
yes.
Steve loves this country. He stands firm for liberty, and like you, he went to Washington to make a difference, to change the way things were done. He's wrongfully imprisoned, and I ask you, please, Mr. President, to pardon my husband.
Thank you so much for your presence, and thank you for your inner beauty and outside beauty, too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and I wish to see you again with Mr. Stockman here in California.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Joy.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Today we heard a story. I was amazed and astonished, and I couldn't believe that something can happen like that in America. And we praying for Mr. Stockman to be released very soon. And I wish if you guys can go, can you please tell us the website one more time, because there is a petition we need to sign to be sent to the President Trump.
It's www.defendapatriot.com.
Thank you so much. And we wish we all pray for him and sign the petition. And thank you so much, and see you again at Ask Mira show from CSAT TV. Good night.